compared to what they're using, real weapons of war. But go ahead, defeat them. That's what I say. But it's an inverted world. This is what I'm saying. This is an inverted world, and we have come to expect this. We've come to expect this. Now, it's all nonsense. But you see, this is their fear. This is what they're pushing constantly. But it sets me up for another bit that I wanted to discuss with you tonight. As far as it goes for real news, as far as it goes for news that we have seen really good, authentic output, some integrity, and a lot more results. I got this email sent to me, and it's focused on Project Veritas. And I want to start off there, and then we can expand outward. A listener from France had submitted this, and it may challenge, I know it will, challenge the dominant opinion about Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. It definitely does for me. But no matter, I think that it'd be a good way to just open up the doors and see what's going on. It's a letter about James O'Keefe. And here's what our friend from Europe has said. He said, Frank, if anyone had any doubts about Project Veritas' legitimacy, the firing of O'Keefe proves convincingly that it was controlled opposition all along. It's a chilling thought that the board was working for the cabal all along, which puts into question what O'Keefe has been doing all along. I came to the conclusion a long time ago that the Daily Wire, The Blaze, Alex Jones, David Icke, and other well-known right-wing platforms are also controlled by the cabal in one form or another. Even Jordan Peterson, who I was a fan of in the beginning, I'm convinced that he has been propped up by the cabal because you need a charismatic, articulate leader who speaks out against wokeism and LGBT madness. But why? Because you need highly visible public figures to oppose a movement. The unfolding fight in quotations, makes the masses become aware of the central themes in the movement. If you had a blown-out football game where one team goes up 70-0, people would lose interest. If O'Keefe is legit, we'll know by what he does and says in the coming weeks and months. For me, his expose of the gay black Pfizer executive was totally staged. Signed, JS from France. Now, when I read something like this, I say, okay, noted. I love James O'Keefe's work, and until I learned about the corporate structure of Project Veritas and what kind of conditions he was working under with this board that kicked him out of his own creation and tried to commandeered it, and it's having disastrous results. They sent out this. It's been leaked today. I don't know if it was whatever. You could say that was controlled too. But they sent out this email to a lot of their donors pretty much begging people not to pull their donations and their support. They're going to be done in no time. I mean, I guess there's some value left to the size of their social media footprint. Maybe that can be so. I don't know. It can't be repurposed unless the board leaves and leaves it all to a James O'Keefe protege, just like James O'Keefe himself is a protege of Andrew Breitbart. It's just going to be shell accounts at this point. They just posted something the other day, I think yesterday, this morning, Project Veritas, and all the comments are just, people aren't even watching what's going on in the videos anymore. They're exposing some school board, a meeting that they had where a school board or school administrators are talking to teachers about transgender bathroom policies and how to deal with students in certain circumstances in the classroom about transgenderism and all that shit. And nobody's even watching. It's just all comments telling Project Veritas to get fucked. But as far as James O'Keefe goes, I don't know. So I've heard some people have this thought, but when you say that someone is controlled opposition in one form or another, you must tell us which forms. I want to know which forms, because obviously with this, the whole thing is, I guess we'll see. But here's why I wanted to bring this up tonight and give it to you guys, because I get emails like this all the time, and it doesn't make the show. I just like knowing what people in the audience are thinking about. My question is, what makes a person, outside of the definition, the textbook definition of controlled opposition, limited hangout, what do you need to see? And what have you seen that proves definitively that one person or another is controlled opposition? Because I tend to see the label applied very liberally. And it's very broad-stroked. And when you broad-stroke anything in that respect, you run into all those same problems that communists have in broad-stroking policy for a nation of hundreds of millions. And what is that? You have to assume perfect knowledge of everybody's ambitions, everybody's intent, and what's happened behind it. I mean, you can't just take what's going on screen anywhere and know the whole story. Now, your gut can throw up red flags, and you can start approaching people with certain amounts of caution. You can see who they are associating with, who they don't talk about, things like that. Especially when it comes to someone like Alex Jones, that's mostly what I hear about. For example, okay, David Icke, he said, reptilian bloodline topics, even though that's not all he does, are just not going to be interesting to certain people. It's not going to it's going to interest people on varying levels. Some people think it's all bullshit. I don't want to be bothered with this. Other people will go all, the complete opposite end of things. But did someone ever find pay stubs for David Icke signed by I don't know. Did anybody ever find a pay stub, Alex Jones, signed by Mossad? I would like to know. That's what I want to open up the lines for. You call in, let me know. Because I've heard that thing about Alex Jones a long time. Either way, it always comes back around to, I take things with most things, especially when it comes to media and this line of work and the people working there. I take a lot of it with a grain of salt, and I just listen. And as time goes on, you find a lot of synchronicity, and you find things that just don't add up. And I try not to get too attached to personalities. So that's my hedge against a lot of things. The main criticism about Jones, for example, is that he always deflects away from Israel and Zionist topics. But I personally, over the years, I've heard him discuss it. I've heard him allow callers to bring it up, respond to callers. Bringing people in, that was not too long ago, maybe about a year or two ago. He brought Nick Fuentes in to go as deep as he'd like. He went into theological reasons for it all, and had that debate with Robert Barnes. I didn't watch it, but I know that happened. So, I mean, and I think over the years, if you're going to say, all right, what's the real issue here? Yeah, I'll just stay focused on Alex Jones for a little while longer, because that's a very common place to start. I think what's hurt people like Jones over the years more than anything is the way that they say things. It's not always what they say, not always. If you can compare him to almost like a Bill Cooper. Now, Bill Cooper, who, as many of you know, I'm pretty sure he thought that Alex Jones was a bullshit artist. And he went on Alex's show once. We played that episode on, quite frankly, the network programming after the show quite a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times over the course of the last year or two. It's really a great and highly prophetic engagement between the two of them. But there's an example right there of how you say something is more important than what you say. Bill Cooper versus Alex Jones. Bill Cooper is moderate, concise, level-headed. He was a little testy with callers when they don't get on board with what he's trying to say. I've listened to a lot of his old recordings. We got to get those series of radio broadcasts up on the network too for consumption. But Jones is far more sensationalist, and that they are turning the frogs gay. They are doing that, and in turn, the rest of us gay. That's what they want. The gay bombs. They're trying to turn Cubans gay with this stuff during the height of the Cold War and all that. I mean, this is stuff that was real, verifiable. It's chemically correct. It's real. And to his credit, it may be maybe the sensationalism is the is the way that he's kept himself alive, or he's bought. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, the way that you say it makes the things that someone like Alex Jones talks about over the years seem radioactive to anybody else who might have a healthy degree of skepticism in their bones. So that's where people start assuming this guy's out there to torpedo things. He's out there to torpedo things. I don't trust him. And, and that's as opposed to Bill Cooper, who predicted 9/11 attacks, who said that they were going to blame Osama bin Laden for it, and then he was murdered in a standoff with law enforcement about, a month after 9/11. So here's a great topic that I wanted to bring up. What does controlled opposition look like to you? Is it a gut thing for you? Do you look for the pay stubs? What is it? Because it's over. I think it's overused sometimes, like shill or grifter. I often ask people, what do you think this person is shilling for? And a lot of people don't even know how to respond. Because you have to say, okay, this person's a shill. A shill for what? What are they shilling? They don't go that far, because it's almost like how some people on the left, they'll scream fascist, and that is really just a euphemism for meanie. So I want to know about this a little bit more. What do you guys see, and when you apply these labels? Is it about how much money a person makes? Because is there a cap for how much financial stability a person in like my line of work can have before they become suspicious? Or is it just who signs your checks? If it's all from audience, or if you have bigger, is it sponsor? Obviously, sponsors can cast the certain sponsors that you bring on can cast a dark cloud on the operation. I've seen people say things like this: whether or not a person can be found and searched for on the internet is a factor in whether or not they're trustworthy. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that if you can still find a podcast and they haven't been canceled, then they can't be trusted. Well, shit, I'm one of the last of many of my friends who are still on YouTube right now. I don't know how I have survived about 12 or 13 strikes. I don't know how I played that game of hopscotch, but I mean, if I was taken off, I would have gotten on with my life, no doubt about it. But, knock on wood, tonight will be the night now. But on the flip side of that, you have people like Alex Jones who are canceled off of literally everything, including Pinterest. So where does that leave someone like me? So it could be, things could be applied broad stroke, and I want to know what you think. I want to see how much do you think that this has become a label that's slapped onto just people that we don't personally vibe with, but may not have any real deep-seated evil ulterior motives. You just might not be on the same page as a person, So, and here's another question I can ask you. So take all this in. You can call in with whatever you'd like. We're going to go on a quick break, and then we're going to bring in your phone calls. 914-595-6953. Here's another question I can ask you. Who can you trust? And I'm not talking about who can you trust in media. And obviously, a lot of people are saying God. And that is beyond valid. Absolutely. But let's talk about it from a situation like this. You have uncovered some information, evidence of there is you cannot question it, evidence of voter fraud or drug trafficking or some heinous crime that is committed by a group, a very powerful group, or a one person or something else. You have the story of a lifetime that could really change the tide and bring a righteous uproar to the country. You have the golden egg, all right? Who do you take it to? That's my question to you. You taking it to the feds? Are you taking it to your sheriff? Is there a specific news organization? Remember, you're talking about maximum impact and handled with integrity.